how the patriarchy is harming your health. Welcome to Change the Conversation with the Hopefulist. My name is Wendy McClure, and it's time we had a conversation about living in a patriarchy and how that affects our lives. Together, we can make a difference and change the conversation. Thank you for being here. I applaud you and your decision to attempt to change the conversation around patriarchy in our lives, in our country, and how damaging it can be and really is for us women. So I thank you for being here, and I hope that you can spread the information in order to change the conversation. Starting out with the quote of the day: change is challenging for us humans, which is an unfortunate fact considering that the only constant thing in our lives is change. If you can't beat change, which you can't, you might as well join it by expecting it, embracing it, and not being so freaked out by it. That's right. So I wanted to quickly mention, speaking of change, it was the 1-year anniversary of the Dobbs decision this past weekend, which was the overturn of Roe v. Wade. I marked the anniversary by going to Washington, D.C. to march out to the Supreme Court to let it be known that we will not take this lying down, that 1 year later we are still fighting and we will do what is necessary to get women the rights that they deserve, the rights that make them a full and equal human in this country. And I hope that you can do a little something here and there to further that cause as well. Today, I wanted to talk about how the patriarchy is actually harming your health. And this is not, in the typical sense of when we talk about the patriarchy and how it disadvantages us women. It does it so from a health point of view, more so than we've really probably ever put any thought into. And I wanted to demonstrate this with just a simple example, something that we have all probably experienced if we've worked outside of the home at any point in our lives. Typically, mostly in the summertime, women in office buildings are typically very cold. I remember when I worked in an office building, I used to literally have to wear a sweatshirt because it was so cold in the office building that I worked in. It was summertime, and I had to wear a sweatshirt. And the reason that it is this way is because temperatures in office buildings is based on the metabolic rate of men who naturally run warmer than women. So as more women came into the workforce, they didn't do anything to change that, to take them into consideration. And that's really what the patriarchy is all about, is women aren't really considered in most aspects of life. So one of the reasons is because of the metabolic rate of men being higher, but the other is that men are wearing business suits. Even in the heat of summer, they're going to the office in a suit, a tie and a jacket. And they may take their jacket off, but they're still wearing a long sleeve button down shirt. So that has to be taken into consideration too. So in essence, what is going on is it's purely for the comfort of men in the office. And it sets us women up to be naggy complainers because we're so freaking cold. And if we have the nerve to say how cold we are, then we're complainers. But I can guarantee you that if the men were cold, there would be something done about it. There would be studies. There would just be outright demands. All right, we're going to turn the air conditioning up a notch or two because it's just downright cold in here. So not only is it built for men's comfort, but then when women complain how uncomfortable they are, they're ignored. Not only are they ignored, but they're called complainers. So we are just set up to fail and to look bad in this system. And that's just one simple example, but it can get so much worse. There is real health harm that can come from living in this patriarchal system. One of them is that women, as we age, our hormones kind of go off balance. We lose a lot of estrogen. We lose a lot of progesterone. And this makes our moods very fluid. And, one of I think the biggest problem is so many male doctors have no idea what women are going through when they are hitting perimenopause or menopause. But it's very common for, once you start to go into this change, that you become very volatile when it comes to your moods. And this is because of the insane hormone rage that's going on inside of your body. And it's not only a difficult time for people around you, it's difficult for you as well. You're trying to understand. And while this is happening, your mood is fluctuating from normal to becoming someone you don't even recognize. And we often just blame ourselves when it's something that's natural. It's something that happens to all women. And during this time, we often have to rediscover ourselves and rediscover who we are, what we believe in, what our purpose is in life. These are the types of questions that we ask when we get to this point in our lives. And at the same time, our brain is going on overload because of all of these changes and all of these questions, and it becomes very forgetful. If you're a woman, you start forgetting things. You search for your words. This happens to me a lot, which is a very big problem in the field that I'm in, that I'm speaking for a living, and I often have to search for my words. It takes me a little too long at times. So I worry about that. I'm like, oh gosh, this could be really detrimental to my career. But we soldier on. We keep moving forward because we have no choice, right? We have no choice. Hopefully we have no choice, because as I said that, it just popped into my brain that the biggest segment of the population to attempt suicide is between the ages of 45 and 55. And that is because we are going through these huge hormonal shifts and these big changes in our lives. And the doctors, the male doctors that we are going to, do not understand. And for many, many years, there was no study of hormones when it came to medical studies. So even though the so-called numbers that your blood work comes up with, you fall into this normal range. So you go to the doctor and you're telling them, I feel like crap, I'm exhausted, I'm stressed out beyond belief. And he says, well, everything looks normal. When you know that there's something going on. So now on top of feeling like crap, being extra stressed, now you're feeling like you're abnormal, because that's what the doctor's telling you, is that you should be okay. You should be fine. And we're starting to delve a little more into, hormone research and how it affects women so much differently than it affects men, of course. But here's what the main problem has been for years and years and years, is that most medical studies have been done on men. So, of course, men don't have any of these issues. So they have very little understanding of what we women are going through and how to make it better for us. It comes to this point in your life when you go through menopause, and they say that it's even you deal with stress even differently, that you can't handle stress like you used to pre-menopause. So everything seems so dire and extreme, and yet we have this reputation in society of being crazy when we go through menopause, that women go nuts when they hit menopause. I remember, this was quite a few years ago, but I was out with some friends of mine, and we ran into this very older gentleman at the bar when we were out having some drinks, doing a happy hour thing. And when I say he was a very older gentleman, he had to have been at least in his 80s. And he was very outspoken, and he was funny, and, we were kind of entertained by him. And somehow it came up about, him being married. He's like, oh, I was married forever. And then, my wife hit menopause and she went crazy. So I had to leave her. And I remember thinking immediately at that time, and the rest of my friends laughed, like, because of the way he said it. She just went crazy. So I had to leave her. And I was thinking, the first thought I had was, oh, so you left her when she needed you most. She likely took care of this man his entire life, and as soon as she needed him, he left, which is the case so many times. So men don't understand what we're going through. Even the medical world doesn't understand the extent of what we're going through. So we need more research, and we need more female doctors so that they can have some experience of what we're going through. And we need them to age to go through it, to be able to relate to what we have happening to us. It's one of the reasons for, the last 20 years. I mean, there were times that I had male gynecologists, but I refuse to go to a man now because they truly don't know what we're going through. You can read all about it, but you're not going to have the knowledge of the person who actually experiences it. And I just find that to be more comforting, more helpful when I'm going to a doctor that can actually know what I am going through. So almost all of the medical studies that had been done, probably up until the 70s or 80s, were just on men. Going back to that air conditioning situation that I talked about, they do everything based on a man's body. And as we know, a woman's body is completely different than a man's body. Another incident that has come up because of doing everything based on men is women are often overdiagnosed in the medication that they are prescribed because the trial studies were done on men. Of course, men are, they're bigger. They have more muscle mass. They're able to, sustain more medicine than a woman would. And oftentimes a woman will be over-prescribed the amount of medication that they need because they don't understand that the studies that were done were just based on men's bodies, not on women's bodies. So these are some real dangers that we are facing as women as we age in a patriarchy. Another potential health risk is the fact that more women die or are injured in car crashes because all of the test dummies, once again, until recently, were based on a man's body. So when they were doing tests on how to make people safer in the incident of a crash with the seatbelts and the airbags and all of that, it was based on a man's body type. And a man can take more trauma and can handle more coming from, being jerked forward with the seatbelt and a airbag going off in their face. And I don't know if you've ever had an airbag go off in your face. It is very frightening. It's a very frightening experience. I had it happen one time, and I don't think it necessarily hurt me. I did have a cut on my forehead, but I think I might have hit the steering wheel before the airbag deployed. I'm not sure. But what I do remember about the airbag deploying, I don't know why I'm having such trouble saying airbag, is there was this white powder that puffed all over the place. And not having ever experienced it before, it was very frightening to me. I thought it was smoke. I thought that there was smoke coming from my car. So then I was like in this panic to get out of the car because I thought that the car was on fire. So just keep that in mind if you're ever in an accident and the airbag deploys. There's probably going to be a puff of smoke that comes around. It's not truly smoke. It's like dust. It's like powder. So keep that in mind. But there are some real health risks to living in this patriarchal world. And the fact that women are not taken into consideration, hadn't been for forever. And they're just starting to include us now in these studies and cases and these trials. But this was before, we were relegated back to second-class citizens. So I don't know what that means for the rest of it. I assume it will go on. I try not to assume anything at this point because it's I become disappointed whenever I assume anything. So the patriarchy can definitely be harmful to your health if you are not aware of the differences of what is happening with your health, your medication, and if you are talking to your doctor who doesn't seem to think that there's anything wrong with you, I would tell you this is the time that you need to advocate for yourself. Either ask him to send you for tests when it comes to hormones or switch doctors. Go to a female doctor, somebody who actually might know what you're going through. We know that men don't have anything compared to menopause. Nothing. Not even remotely close. So it's something they just didn't pay attention to forever because the patriarchy is built for the comfort of men and the comfort for the lives of men. And that didn't include anything to do with women except for the fact that we were there to serve them. And since that has changed now hopefully we're doing some better science and research when it comes to health issues for women. But we have a lot of catching up to do. So make sure that you are advocating for yourself and make sure that if your doctor is telling you that everything is normal and you know that something is wrong, that something is just not right, you keep pushing for more tests, more options of what the problem could be, or you go to another doctor and, you make that doctor stay in the room with you until you have your questions answered, because we all know how that is. The doctor's constantly trying to get out of the room the minute they step into it. And they're always like, okay, well, and I'm like, well, no, wait, I have another question. You are paying for this service through health insurance and probably a copay, probably a deductible. They're getting their money. So you ask all of the questions that you have because this is your opportunity to do so. Don't let them, bully you into not asking your questions. And I know that it can be difficult, especially if you're not used to speaking up for yourself. But I try to write down a list. I write down on a list what the things are that I want to discuss with my doctor. And if I don't forget the list at home, which I typically do, take the list with you. And that way you will know that you will have all of the questions that you are asking covered. Because you are the one who's going to look out the most for you. So keep all of this in mind. If you're not feeling right, go to someone who can help you with that. And if they're not helping you, insist that they attempt to try more so to help you, or go to someone else. And I know the health insurance situation in this country is not the best. So it's difficult to do things like that. But there is nothing more important than your health. You are nothing if you are not healthy. So you do what you need to do in order to feel your best. That's the only advice I can give at this point. So I hope that this will be changing in the future, and this is why we need to have these conversations so that we can start to point out how detrimental these studies and trials and the attitudes of doctors can be toward women, toward our health and well-being. So I encourage you to explore all of the options and talk to your girlfriends about the conversations that they're having with their doctors and see if they match up, see if anybody has somebody who has been able to help them, and go from there. But it's time to have this conversation in order to change the conversation around patriarchy so that we can have a comfortable life as well in this world. So I thank you for joining me today. If you have not already, please leave me a review and share this podcast with your friends. I would be most appreciative if you would do that for me. Now, I want you to go out there and be badass and live a life that matters. I am always here cheering you on. Thank you for joining me in this conversation. Together, we are better. Please visit my website at hopefulist.com and remember to hit that subscribe or follow button.